So, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll explain you how playing can be as important as survival, Aries, and nutrition, Taurus. So here we go with the sign of Gemini. I've already recorded this shit, I lost the audio, I'm so fucking mad, but we're during a Mercury retrograde, so you know, this stuff happens. So, this is the first sign of the mutable axis, and coincidentally the first non-sexual sign, which is a sign that lacks any strong genderification, which is also why this sign is also known for its androgynous nature. So what's its dialectic? Gemini being the sign of dialectics and dialects, although I'll explain dialects later. The sign, first of all, does try to freeze time very desperately. You can see by the Uranus transparence the eternally frozen time. Its first domicile is Mercury. You can see that. So it means versatility, acceleration of time, and the adolescence. I'll explain this later. This time freezing is not the always the same of the Virgo, but rather the always new, because the order is inverted. So we get acceleration of time Mercury as the input and the output Epsilon eternal time. So we get in our code only at the end. This always new is something you can clearly find in stuff like newspapers, which are trash and obsolete the day after you buy them. There's literal people I've personally experienced that absolutely get disgusted if you read a newspaper of the day before. The adolescent, which you know tries to embody the stupid ennui, that sense of boredom, that sense of feeling like nothing is really fun, you already tried everything, everything's already seen, you know. It treats the all with sufficiency, or it directly hates it. It also includes the theatrical. So it tries to blend in those little fractions of life, so like slices of life. So it's like all those roles embodied in the past, future, and present, which is like the theatrical nature. This aspect is very interesting because if you know, in English, theatrical plays are called plays, which invokes the playful nature of this sign, which invokes the playful nature of role-playing of a billion different characters, which implies the one very light-hearted nature of this dialectic. So Gemini is the theatrical sign. The sign does domicile diversity, you see this Mercury. So this Pluto exaltation, you can see, is first of all the potential future outcomes, because, you know, if Pluto is the seed, not all seeds fecund the egg, so some seed will not, only the one with the most potential. So this Pluto works very much, also exalted, as a teenager trying different hobbies and jobs. But basically you can eternalize time and freeze it via this Uranus, and you eternalize this experience for a single eternal second, or like that very short period of time you try that activity. Pluto is the desire invoked by the mercurial jokes, which cannot last and will not last for long, because the joke is only good as long as it lasts little, because desiring any specific thing for too long would mean for the sign to get old, and thus get bored, and thus lose its momentum, lose its speed, lose its capacity to juggle between all those different roles, all those different experiences, you know? The sign always wants to do stuff that's new or not done before. Gemini is, in the most literal sense, the sign of anything in the now and anything close. Why? Because Mercury does also represent smallness and closeness, opposites Sagittarian distance. So if Gemini is the here and now, Sag is the far away. But this Neptune fall is also the confusion that goes away when Gemini, after trying 5 billion things, finally decides that this thing is gonna be part of its identity. So if Mercury makes them try all these different things, or at least makes them versatile and young and curious, and Mercury is also a trickster, if you know. Pluto makes them desire excessively, so since there's no Mars, they can't commit to, they don't push through very much. So you don't know, if you're Aries, when they desire something, they actually go for it. Geminis rarely if ever do this, because there is no Mars. But Uranus freezes this desire, so you have like a billion fragments of those desires. But at the end, when you are finally done with this whole ass thing, you get Epsilon, so you get identity. They know what they are. So the confusion goes away. They usually use this literal confusion to produce identity in this specific aspect. Also, there's the fall of Jupiter. So Jupiter is abundance, mercy, trust. So Jupiter implies trusting people, which makes Sagittarians notoriously lack boundaries. If Jupiter makes people be trusted, because it's literally dilation of space, I'll explain this later. Jupiter also makes Geminis, since it's exiled, it makes them not trust so much. Also makes them very much desecrating. Their jokes are desecrating, and making jokes in general is a form of desecration. Pluto, though, it's explosive. You can see this, you've seen this in Aries. Hence, this is a literal excess of desires or potentialities. So a teenager can be too much things. It's more like a fizzy drink. So it's like very much like the shocking news that you get in journalism, which brings success for a very short amount of time, because Mercury is short time. Don't get assimilated, because we have the fall of it. It is also very much like gossip, which is obviously ruled by Gemini, which lasts for a very short amount of time. The something Geminis hate massively is being slowed down. Those people need options and speed. They need both the capacity of not being tied down to anything and the possibility of trying different things, because we got a Mercury and Pluto. But Gemini is also the sign of logic and knowledge. Humans can only absorb knowledge if they have assimilated the previous one. So it works very much for stages. It's exalted in Sag makes Sagittarians absorb experiences done by their Gemini counterparts, those very multiple, plural, very many experiences. Gemini is also the sign of information, which is very different. Epsilon is information, is what you get at the end, while in Virgo is specifically data. So if for Gemini, information is more like the code, at least this Epsilon is more fluid. So what matters is not its ordering, but rather its continuous succession from one to the other, and keeping the flow of it. For Virgo is very different. It's like the assimilation of experiences of the its exalted in Sag forces the assimilation of the experiences done by Gemini. It's informations, it's what it gets from those. It's diffusion, because we have Jupiter and Neptune, so we can literally go as far as we can, and is the whole world, trying to recollect knowledge into a form of all knowledge, which we call philosophy, like a form of definitive knowledge, which is not definitive in any way, shape, or form, but that's the fee you get from it. Also like how you make it, which Gemini then, after leading those philosophies, will completely desecrate them, also like religion too, to an extent, by expanding with new data. So you get new information, new codes, new experiences that expand what Sagittarius did. So for example, the limit in this world for the Greeks was the columns of Hercules near Gibraltar. So people went like, there's nothing outside of this, there's only monsters and stuff like this to probably scare the people. Somebody goes beyond, and now you have like, oh, maybe there's something outside of it. And then you reach up to the colonization period, the exploration period, which also was very massively impacted by Sagittarius transits. So the conquistadores, Christopher Columbus, go beyond, discover there's a vast more space, they get more data. There's Gemini also there because you need information, you know, and you get that process of infinitely expanding the confines of stuff, which Gemini is specifically made to violate confines, boundaries. This is not the most consensual of signs. Much like if you make a joke, you risk offending everybody involved. It's also true for this sign in general. And if you reach the end of the world, well, you know what, now we can go to the moon. You reach the moon, you can go forward, always forward, because Sag on the other side always says we can expand more. There is no limit because there's Neptune at the end of Sag, so there's always infinite amount of that can manifest itself when you reach specifically the borders. So this Epsilon, Gemini categorizes its experiences. After it categorizes them, boom, there's more infinite amount of experiences to do. So this Neptune here, exiled, as that aspect too of literally being consumed. So the confusion, the infinity gets consumed to produce identity. So the more you define, the less you see. So if we define with epsilon, we see less, there's less infinite, but infinity is infinite, so it doesn't really matter. But we see less of the complete picture. And this is how philosophy works. The Gemini gets the scientific knowledge, you pack it up, you get philosophy. You see people try philosophy for like a while, so they're like, until it fades basically. Then they get new data, it gets updated, etc., etc., etc. The rest in detail, which Lisa Morpurgo told, was the forest, as I said in Taurus, is ruled by it, which is consumed, forests, wood, trees, to produce papers for those newspapers. Gemini is also the sign of those type of materials. Gemini age-wise, is the teenager, which seeks intellectual stimulation, Mercury, and possibilities, Pluto, all those different seeds. It also tries to freeze all those possibilities, so they try being eternally young, which more often than not does not work. But that's how being young works, and how being Gemini that works as well, because Geminis will literally delay being old pretty much infinitely. Like Geminis, even like biologically, like their body structures do not really age that much. Like their skin is always quite literally youthful. Their body features as well. If you have a Gemini ascendant, you will look youthful for all your life, because this sign literally freezes youth. Biblical stories for today. We have the Tower of Babel. You know. So, this is Gemini, Genesis, 11. The whole world speaks one language, Sagittarius, which is a divine language in this case. But as the people moved eastward, they found a plain somewhere in Mesopotamia, and they settled there. But God commands them to scatter. He wants multiplicity, he wants diffusion, he wants proliferation of this it, which falls in Gemini. But they don't want to split. They don't want to speak different languages, become different cultures. They all want to be very much bunched up in this land. So what they do is try building a tower with many layers. Pluto is also layers, which is fueled, this building of the tower is fueled by their desire to reach the skies. And also not be disseminated all around the world. That God came, Jupiter, confuses their language. So you have Neptune. This also happens when Gemini is the sign of dialects. Gemini is the sign of all those slang terms you use. So over time, they very, very rapidly differentiate. This Neptune exiled by Epsilon is also literally all of the different communication methods becoming more confused over time. They don't blend in like Sag blends in languages. Gemini doesn't. Gemini differentiates languages. Then thus you get dialect. And in this case, you even get like primordial languages because God spreads them all around the world. So you get new languages. Something that also impacts Gemini is rapping. So rappers usually tend to have some degree of Gemini placements or something that makes their Mercury fast because it's very important. And the rapping is like 90% rhymes and like 10% meaning. The meaning does not really matter. What it matters is that the flow is consistent of the different words. They sound fluid. They rhyme, of course. So like you can see how Sagittarius meaning of this Jupiter is also meaning, the expansion of form. It's exiled, so it doesn't really matter. We consume this meaning for speed. So as we consume this meaning for speed, you get this type of communication. Historically, I tied Gemini with Navy, obviously the English, pirates and such. So, after the great agricultural societies of Taurus, we have the arrival of those mysterious sea peoples. They came from the sea, obviously, and struck Egypt. They didn't destroy it. They do destroy the Hittites and the Mycenaeans, though. What they did, most importantly, was diffusing information. So they diffused the knowledge of iron tools. And the most important thing was that emergent culture after this whole mess was the Phoenician one. They lived on like the coasts of Syria, Lebanon, the Levant in general, but like the coastline part. And Phoenicians resemble very closely Geminian type of dialectics. So they incarnate opportunism, of this Pluto opportunism. Geminis are also very opportunists. They incarnate this opportunism and mercantilism. This sign also the sign of commerce. It's more like markets. I'll talk about its mercantile nature later. But those Phoenicians were both merchants, peaceful traders, and raiders. Pluto eternally desires more. What we want, more gold, more information, etc. Their nature was dualistic in this sense, Not only, but this aspect, it's what really makes the Phoenicians, for me, as a Geminian signification. Because they were the creators of the first phonetic alphabet. And sound is ruled by Gemini. Mercury is hears. If you check your Mercury, you will know how you hear shit. So what's up with this big thing? This revolutionary innovation, very interesting at the time. Why? Because it allowed for faster communication. So we have Mercury, which wants speed, as much speed, acceleration of time as we can. So if your old pictograms the Taurians did, or whatever the Sumerians did, which was not phonetic, by the way, made for a type of writing that was really slow. It was about images, those Taurian images you see, like it's not fast, it's not good for commerce, while phonetic alphabet is obviously correlated with the sound. So letters are associated with sound. So I say a letter and it's associated with the sound, which is Gemini. This makes up for a very faster type of communication. So you can write as you speak. You can analyze languages and writing systems this way. Is very interesting when you break it down. So it allowed for this very much faster communication, which is Gemini. But the Phoenicians, through their vast trade network, spread technologies, goods, informations, myths, religions, etc. They spread stuff, you know. Their conquest was now based on size, so it was not like the Roman Empire, let's conquer everything until we have like a nice border that the barbarians can cross. It was about extremely localized mercantile outposts. So the Phoenicians would like very much the trade empires of the 1600s, established trade posts along the way, and founded a lot of colonies as well, like Carthage was itself a colony of Tyre. So they navigated this hostile sea, they adapted, Gemini adapting to coastlines, cultures, to maximize their trade value. Their very existence was consumption of space. Because through navigation, they virtually, and emphasis on the word virtually, unified the Mediterranean. They overcame geographic barriers to connect all those civilizations. So they compressed the time, or accelerated it with this Mercury, by accelerating the spread of goods, knowledge, and information. The important thing is also that since we have Pluto, and Pluto is very fickle, very renowned, it's like not very much people know of their legacy. So, Gemini significations. Wrists, you can see the wrist is also very important to correlate with writing. You don't write with your hand, you write with your wrist. It's the wrist that moves, not the hand. Ears, of course, sound. Sound in general is Gemini. Tennis, another sport you play with your wrist, also invented in England. Tennis, table tennis, more wrist sports. Ping pong, this one is Chinese though. And Chinese also literally a Gemini signification. And elbow, the elbows too. Geographical are China, England, gin, tennis, you know. Bows, you will think that bows are Sagittarian because there's literally a hole like that, like the center, right? No. Sagittarius is the arrow. Gemini is the bow. You know, English famously use their bows in Agincourt in like the 100 Years' Wars to defeat French noble knights. So also that should reinforce the signification for you. Journalism, publicity, which in the modern world evolves to all those different forms of PR and like diffusion of the market good we are trying to sell, you know. Radio speakers, podcasts, small technological trinkets, not the big ones. Those ones are ruled by Virgo, like computers are not. I'm not even sure if laptops are Geminis or Virgo, but like personal computers are Virgo. Phones and radios are Gemini ruled because the communication is very much faster, short in nature, and like it gets classmates, in particular schools too, although it probably reaches up to like high school, nothing beyond that. In particular preschools or anything like very, very youthful, because university is more Sagittarian, you know. Classmates, Gemini rules classmates. Brothers as well in some aspects, although that's more Mercury in general. How is the Gemini personality? Those people are very fun, quick-witted, and generally smart. They will sometimes, I've noticed this insane amount of times, they will say they want something like the glamorous, popular version of something or like the lifestyle. What they usually mean or need in general is just very constant communication and socialization. They need to meet a whole lot of new people or like very mutable people. So people that like change a lot, bring novelty in general. They need novelty in general. They don't really need that type of like glamorous thing necessarily. Even sometimes, like for example, Marilyn Monroe was a Gemini, they might grow to despise it, and it could backfire on them. Those people, the moment they exhaust their social battery, they become insufferable, even more than any of your very easy to annoy earth signs or your Aquariuses. They really don't like being annoyed when they're down on their battery, because as fast as they get excited, they get depressed. Which is like the whole thing makes for very confusing interactions with them. The moment you see them being a bit depressed, probably don't push them for any type of intensive social interaction. They're not big on feelings. That's the moon in exiled by transparence. So if the moon is exiled by transparence, they obviously don't want to think about the past or like be in the past and like feel the feelings, nostalgia and stuff like that. Although nostalgia will get re-evoked because usually Geminis have literally Cancer as the next sign, so it does have an impact on that. So usually they have Cancer too, so the moon is kind of recovered in that sense. Usually, it depends. They excel at making you find a way to drop the heaviness of life, like they make life feel light again, and even make you feel young again. So people can tend to be very trendy or trend-based in general. It depends on specific stuff, like even the placements themselves. Like, I don't know, you have a 6th house Gemini, like you dress very trendy. Gemini, 3rd house, probably very, very trendy music or something like that. You know, it works like this. He wants to be in the moment. They also keep up with the times quite easily, even if they are very old. Like they don't like aging, you know. They will pretend to not be aging. They are social group nomads, which means they will associate with multiple social groups. They don't want to be tied, or usually at least, to a one single social group. And they can be very, very much like that. So they do that. That's everything for today. Hopefully it was informational, interesting, etc. See ya!